I want to talk about a trend that I am seeing in memoir publishing. 3 particular types of memoir that I believe we're going to start seeing published more and more frequently over the coming years. I think that these types of memoirs are stories that we're going to be reading and seeing in bookstores and hearing about a lot in the coming years. And it's so exciting. If you've never heard of me before, my name is Louisa. I'm an author. I've written 2 memoirs and I teach memoir and traditional publishing to writers all across the world in my signature program, The Art of Memoir. I used to be a journalist. I wrote a lot of feature stories for publication. Then I wrote my first book, which was a travel memoir. My second book, you can see behind me, is a memoir, A Letter from Paris, about discovering my late father's life in France. So when I was a freelance journalist, I would get stories commissioned by editors and media because I would pitch on things I saw coming into light in trends, in media, in conversations, in the way that our lifestyles were changing. And these trends were things that I would see coming up, and I would pitch a story on an angle to it. And this is how I would get stories published. The reason I mention this is because publishing, traditional book publishing, is a retail industry. And it is based upon trends in our lifestyles, in the global market, in reading habits, which are basically lifestyle habits, in business habits and spending and psychological kind of interest areas. So this is where I'm getting this sense that particular books are going to be coming into the publishing realm more and more. So with that said, something that I've noticed in my own work, teaching and coaching authors and the writers that I follow on social media, and the things that I've been observing in conversation, in changes and shifts in the way we consume media. A lot of people I know these days are not watching the news anymore. More and more frequently, people are subscribing to YouTube instead of paying for a streaming service, for example, like Netflix, because there's just so much violence on Netflix. And political trends. We just recently had an election in Australia where I am, and even local elections. I'm getting flyers in my letterbox about these topics because there's been a big shift in how we live. So these 3 memoirs that I believe we're going to start seeing a lot more. The first one, which I actually just saw one win I think it was a New Author of the Year award, and that was by Gina, who survived for 60 days and nights in the Tasmanian wilderness. She also won the first season of Alone Australia, and she wrote a memoir, We Are the Stars, and it won the New Author of the Year award. Now, Gina is an incredible human and a beautiful writer, and this topic, and I think we're going to start seeing it a lot more, is about returning to nature. Not necessarily books about living in the Tasmanian wilderness with nothing but some salt and a possum cloak, but this return to nature and the wild. Because I believe, and I'm seeing that many more people are feeling so disconnected from our bodies and from how we are meant to function as humans by this endless electrical frequency, the endless population growth of the major cities, and the noise and the lack of interaction with what we're eating and understanding how food is actually produced. I'm seeing people that I've never before seen grow anything now start their own greenhouses, for example, and grow their own vegetables. So I believe that this return to nature, return to the wild, building your own place, building your own garden, rewilding as a topic is going to be coming out a lot more frequently as a published memoir in the coming months and years. So if you're writing a memoir about a return to nature, maybe you're building a cabin in the woods, maybe like me, you escaped the noise level of the city for a tree change, this is good news for you if you want to get published. I even had someone contact me for a story for a major magazine to interview me on moving to the country. So I believe that we are more and more interested in this topic. So that's number 1. Returning to nature, and particularly the female experience of rewilding and returning to nature. And that is because of the way the Wi-Fi, the NBN, this endless technological advance that has taken over the planet is affecting us on a physical level. So that's number one. That's the type of memoir number one that we will start seeing more and more frequently in bookshops and online. Number two is women. Okay, so a huge political shift in Australia that I've observed is we are finally learning about this term medical misogyny. We are finally hearing it spoken about in political circles. We are finally seeing some action because more women are getting seats in parliament, seats in political parties. We recently had an Australian election, and the independents, which is majorly made up of female leaders, rose to the fore for the first time. And it's this awareness that women's bodies and even the whole medical system has been founded on and funded by one gender. And so there is an entire experience of pain, of medical problems, of medical experiences that has not been studied, researched, funded, or given attention to, is shifting massively. I've seen stories for our major newspapers where some of my friends were interviewed on their experience of being misdiagnosed and ignored for female issues, which are basically issues that affect 50% of the planet. And these are major issues that aren't, a sneeze or a cough, issues that affect us our entire lives. So I believe that there's going to be more memoirs published on female experiences of life, particularly including the whole concept of fertility, childbirth, our female organs, and the experience of that. In that personal health experience of being a woman, and also marginalized groups, I would like to add. So not just being in a female body, but these gender diverse perspectives and also neurodiverse perspectives. But I do believe this ties into a woman's experience of the human body, because the brain is part of the human body. I was one of millions of women retrospectively diagnosed with a neurodiversity in my 40s, and we saw a big shift in diagnoses of neurodiversity such as autism, ADHD, DDD, and abnormal ways that the brain processes information, communicates, and experiences life. And because of this big shift statistically, I think that we are going to start reading a lot more of these books and seeing a lot more of these stories come to the fore. Comedian Celeste Barber, who I love, has been very open about her journey with ADHD, and I find that helpful because that was what I was diagnosed with late in my 40s, and certain things that she's shared, like the need for physical exercise and how much that influences her symptoms, can only help me. And it's the same with all of these stories that we're going to start reading more. I'll give you an example, and this is really inspiring. An author that I know, she's published 2 novels. She was recently rejected for her memoir on her experience of miscarriage, and she was told by a Big 5 publisher that those kinds of stories won't sell. And so Mary and another author started their own publishing company, Third Rail Press, and they're committed to amplifying women's voices. And they've had 3 memoirs published already. Extremely common experience, but we haven't been seeing these books, and so we haven't been able to connect with this experience before. Mary's book, which she published with Third Rail Press, is called You Might Feel a Little Pressure. Ali Mudrick, who is the founder of Third Rail Press, her memoir is called Blue Hour Homecoming. And they've also just signed an author, which I'm really excited about, for her memoir, Lindsay Bartels. And her memoir is called Imogen in Waiting, and that will be coming out in 2026. Now, this is about her experience being born with the BRCA gene, which means that you have some really high chance of developing breast cancer, and it's about those questions and those challenges that she faced when she was considering whether or not she would have children. Now, these are issues that have been happening for years, decades, centuries, but we just have not been reading about them in memoirs, which is absolutely heartbreaking. So what Third Rail Press is doing is incredible, because they founded their own publishing company to start this trend. And the thing with publishing, because it's a retail industry, it follows trends. So this this very fact of them publishing and giving attention to these voices will then show the big publishers who will follow trends that these books sell. It is a traditional publishing company, and the fact that they are signing deals with authors like Lindsay Bartels, whose memoir is about the BRCA gene, I believe you call it, is just absolutely fantastic. So we're going to start reading about these experiences that for so long have been hidden, ignored, have been told they're not palatable, that no one will want to read them. These are compelling stories of human experience. This is the thing about memoir. The reason we love memoir and non-fiction personal stories is because it gives us a glimpse into dealing with the exact aspects of life that we deal with. So this is really good news for half of the planet, is we will now start to read about more of the lived experience of being human in a woman's body where we weren't before. So I'm really excited about that trend. We're going to start reading about more women's experiences in their physical bodies, and we'll be able to start learning and knowing more about these topics, such as menopause, which, it's ridiculous how little you can actually find out about that as a woman, and fertility issues and everything that comes with being able to carry children, that physical experience. So when I teach memoir, I talk about the 4 relatable human themes. Every topic or theme in a story can come down to one of these incredibly relatable human themes, because they are the only things that affect our experience of survival on the planet. And one of them is the physical body. So I believe we're going to start seeing a lot more memoirs written about a female experience of living in the physical body and the challenges and the triumphs that come with that, which is really good news. And I can't wait to read more of these books, because I'm really interested in health and psychology and medical writing as well. So the third memoir topic and type of memoir that I believe will be seeing a lot more in the coming months and years is about consciousness. The reason that I say that is because I noticed a statistic. There's a YouTube channel. It's called Next Level Soul. Was started by a man that used to work in Hollywood film production called Alex Ferrari. And it's all experiences and interviews with people who previously would have been ignored and who were afraid to speak. Near-death experiences, people who are channels and mediums. These were topics that were relegated to the out there, the hippie, the nutty aspect of society. And he's had more views, watches, subscribers than major mainstream news channels. And this signifies a big shift. I personally subscribe to YouTube, so I have the paid version of YouTube. I don't watch free-to-air TV, and I believe that I'm one of many of these. There's just a lot more quality material being produced. The way that we produce media has changed. And so on that topic as well, I've noticed that Dr. David Hawkins, who died a number of years ago, but one of his books was republished by Hay House last year, The Map of Consciousness Explained, and it was in the new release and the bestseller section. I also recently looked at the best-selling titles in a non-fiction for the New York Times, and one of those was called Everything is Consciousness. And so the fact that people are starting to consider the spiritual aspects, consciousness, the invisible aspects to reality that once upon a time would have been relegated to hippie and out there is really good news, because we'll start reading more memoirs about these life-changing spiritual journeys and our experience of the world changing through working from the inside out in our lives. And I'm really excited because that's exactly the kind of memoir that I love to read. I've read many of Dr. David Hawkins' books. They are actually non-fiction though. They are more general topics on consciousness and psychology. But there is a chapter in most of his books in which he shares his personal story, and I want to read more of those kinds of stories. These are the stories that you see on the Next Level Soul podcast, which are just incredible experiences, and they're so uplifting, even though paradoxically they've been relegated to the nutty out there experience for so long. I believe we're going to start seeing more of these books on personal transformation of consciousness being published as memoirs in the coming months and years. And I'm really excited for that. This is exactly what I love to read, and I know that there has been a big shift in not just how we consume media, but who has power to create media. So this brings me to the whole reason that this is made possible, that there's going to be a rise in these 3 topics and themes that we're going to see as published memoirs in traditional publishing, because individuals have more power right now than they ever have to create ebooks and self-publish and create multimedia channels on YouTube like Alex Ferrari did with the Next Level Soul podcast. And so by doing that sort of individual work, then the bigger picture groups like major top 5 publishers and major media start to pick up on that and see, oh, okay, people are leaving Netflix and not subscribing to Netflix because they'd rather pay for this individual YouTube thing, or this individual who's producing this. What's the trend here and how can we tap into that? So they'll be signing more of these stories and they will be producing and publishing more of these stories. So there are 3 topics, 3 types of memoir that I see coming to the fore in the coming months and years, and I'm really excited. So are you writing one of these memoirs? If so, tell me about it in the comments. I'd love to know. I'm really excited to see these topics and these themes being explored in published books because it's a big shift and they're really positive and they're really uplifting. Every memoir is, of course, a personal story and has challenges, but by seeing and knowing and understanding more of this experience of being human, which is what a memoir really gives to us through that personal lens, we will all be able to tap into more of who we are and who we can become. So I'm really inspired and I'm really excited about these shifts in publishing. It's just going to give us all more of a perspective of how much more similar we are than different and how much more we have in common with each other. So I hope you have gained something from this. Are you writing a memoir on one of these topics or themes? And are you excited to read more of these books? Maybe you're more of a reader than a writer. Let me know in the comments.